What happened when Darth Bane slaughtered a team of Jedi to keep the Rule of Two secret? And did he make the same mistake that Chimere has in the Acolyte? Greetings, students of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. The Sith of the Rule of Two era have one primary goal besides eventually destroying the Jedi, that being to remain hidden. Not every Rule of Two Sith succeeded at this though, and they often made missteps that cost the Sith Order dearly and decades worth of setbacks. However, they would do everything they could to rectify their mistake and ensure that no Jedi knew of their existence. Unfortunately, in the recent episode of The Acolyte, the stranger who was revealed to be Chimere spat on all of that by openly revealing himself as a Sith Lord, taking on an entire group of Jedi by himself with no apparent backup plan. After we judged him for this, our researchers noticed sentiment being passed around that Bane had done the exact same thing in Legends continuity. In today's holocron, we aim to disprove this by recalling the story of what actually happened with Bane and the Jedi. Darth Bane's situation was completely different, and he did in fact have it much worse than Chimere did, and still made it out alive, with the Jedi being none the wiser to the Rule of Two. So join us today as we recall one of the last battles of the Jedi and Sith before the Sith went into hiding for 1,000 years. Now, let us open this dark holocron. The most important part about this duel is actually the prelude. At this point in the timeline, the Brotherhood of Darkness led by Lord Khan had been dead for around 10 years. Darth Bane had trained his apprentice Zana, and the Rule of Two had now officially begun. With that said, Bane was running into a few problems. Firstly, the fact that he was unable to make a holocron successfully. Bane was missing a crucial step in the process, and continuously failed to properly create one in order to house his knowledge and legacy. Secondly was the Orbalisk parasites attached to Bane's body. For those of you who don't know or may need a refresher, the Orbalisks were large crustaceous parasitical creatures that latched onto Bane's body whenever he entered the tomb of the ancient Sith Freed and Nad. The Orbalisks were impossible to remove because they had attached to him and were feeding off of his energy, drawn to him because of the dark side within. An attempt to safely remove them had all failed, and if one of them were to die, it would flood his body with a venom and would kill the Dark Lord instantly. With that said, it was not all bad. In return for feeding off of Bane's energy, they in turn flooded him with hormones that gave him a significant boost in his strength, both physically speaking and in the dark side, forming a constant cycle of rage, as well as the Orbalisk shells were nearly indestructible, being completely impervious to lightsaber blades. They began growing over Bane's entire body to form a full suit of Orbalisk armor, one which made Bane basically invincible at the time. Bane did, however, have to use specialized gloves and a cage-like mask to keep the Orbalisks from going over his hands and his face. And while the armor was allowing him to forego all defense in lightsaber combat, focusing only on attack while having overwhelming strength, the roid rage he was going through due to the hormones was keeping him from properly creating a holocron that he desired. And because of one of his blind rages because of the parasites, Bane nearly killed Zana over a misunderstanding, nearly destroying a decade of training that he had put into his apprentice. And as a result, Bane needed the Orbalisk to be removed, as they were becoming too much trouble than they were worth. They were slowly threatening to kill him and destroy the Sith. All of this is to set the stage of how the interaction with the Jedi happened. Bane goes into the deep core world of Tython to the fortress of Belia Darzu. Belia was a Dark Lady of the Sith who specialized in the creation of holocrons, one of the earliest holocron creators in all of the lore. Darth Bane knew that the information he desired on holocron crafting would certainly reside within her own holocron, but to be efficient, Bane also sent Zana on a specialized mission, one to help him with the Orbalisks. Of course, when we say specialized, we mean unreasonably risky. Information on these crustaceous parasites was frighteningly scarce, and there was only a single place in the galaxy that had information that Bane needed, and that was the Jedi archives. So he had Zana train for months in order to impersonate a young Jedi Padawan. Zana learned to cast a Sith spell to hide her darkness deep within herself, and she colored her strikingly blonde hair black in order to resemble a Padawan that she once knew. There was no chance of this Padawan showing up to the temple at this time, because she was the apprentice to a researcher in the Outer Rim, so Zana had all the time that she needed. Once prep was complete, Zana infiltrated the Jedi archives in order to find anything she could about the Orbalisks, and luckily, after a week of searching and barely avoiding detection from the Jedi, Zana found what she was searching for. But she had also found something else. Darovit, her childhood cousin and a healer. Trouble began as he immediately recognized her as Zana, and it was then revealed that it was much worse. Darovit had seen Darth Bane and had been brought to the temple to testify before the High Council, confirming that there was a Sith who had survived the thought bomb and that the Sith had not yet been destroyed. Zana forced the man to come with her back to her master Bane, making him read her information on obelisks so that she could heal Bane once that they arrived. However, in her haste, Zana would make a critical mistake. Instead of following her master's order to meet her on the world of Ambria, Zana instead brought herself and her cousin directly to Bane on Tython. Bane was infuriated that Zana had disobeyed him, and the consequences of her mistake immediately revealed themselves. Zana had been followed, and behind her, a ship arrived that carried a cargo of an elite Jedi strike team. This forced the Sith to retreat inside the fortress of Belia Darzu, as the Sith prepared themselves for a final stand against the Jedi. Now, you can see the situation is night and day compared to what happened with Chimere. The stranger in the Acolyte sought the Jedi out himself. He didn't have to reveal himself at all, or even get involved except be silent to May. But Chimere chose to take on a team of 8 Jedi and openly reveal himself as a Sith. In contrast though, Bane was cornered due to circumstance beyond his control. The Jedi already had prior suspicion that at least one Sith Lord had survived the bomb, and Darovit's testimony was just to confirm that a Sith had actually survived and the Jedi were sent to investigate. But when he went missing, the Jedi put 2 and 2 together and sent out their best strike team to deal with Bane. Unlike Chimere, who got to 1v8 a bunch of Jedi that were barely worth their lightsabers, besides Jeki and Sol of course. These are 5 Jedi that Bane and Zana were up against, the most elite of the elite, sent there to destroy the Sith. This was their speciality, and they knew who they were facing. First and foremost, there was Master Rosk'Talisu, an Echani Jedi that was championed as one of the greatest duelists of her time. Her species valued combat as the highest form of art and expression, so this Jedi trained her body into a living weapon, one that exceeded even the standards of her race. Employing both the Echani martial arts and the Jedi way into her style, the Jedi became the ultimate lightsaber warrior. During the war, she had killed legions of Sith, carving a path of destruction whenever she was on the battlefield. It was said that just as many Sith fell to her twin lightsabers as did the thought bomb. And then there was the Jedi Master's Padawan, who was now a knight by the name of Sero Zash, a giant of a man who was the same height and build as Darth Bane, nearly 2 meters in height and 150 kilograms, or 330 pounds of raw muscle. Taking his master's path as a warrior, this Jedi wielded a massive blue saber staff that was 3 meters long, or nearly 10 feet in length. And then there was Jahun Othone, perhaps the most unremarkable of the group, but still an important figure for the Jedi. He had been the Padawan of General Hoth, the Jedi who led the Army of Light during the war against the Sith. Johan had been one to suspect that the Sith were not all dead, and he was the Jedi that insisted that Darovit testify before the Council. And then there was Master Valentine Farfalla, and friend of General Hoth, who led a significant amount of Jedi warriors in countless battles during the Ruusan campaign. And then finally, there was Jedi Master Waror, an Ithorian Jedi who was General Hoth's advisor. He did not carry a lightsaber because he provided support as an expert in battle meditation. With all of that said, this was a terrifying Jedi strike team, meant to be as anti-Sith as possible. Each and every one of them were veterans of war who had lost many Jedi close to them, and each of them had slaughtered Sith. Bane was in trouble. Zana and Bane waited for their foes to arrive within the fortress, and for the confrontation they chose a very large, empty room, as well as 2 clear exits in case the Sith needed to make a quick escape. Once the Jedi arrived in the room, absolutely no words were exchanged. It was sabers on sight. The Jedi split their team up into 2 groups, with Master Waror staying off to the side to provide battle meditation. Rosk'Talisu and Farfalla charged at Darth Bane, while Johan and Saru went after Zana. Darth Bane met his Jedi strike team's assault with a charge of his own, and like an unstoppable bull, Bane went straight for the heads of the Jedi, bringing down a wild and a heavy swing. The Jedi Lisu managed to avoid his attack and dish out several rapid strikes to the Dark Lord, only to see that not one of them did anything to Bane's body due to his Orbalisk armor. The Jedi Farfalla only barely managed to avoid Bane's charge due to being empowered by Waror's battle meditation. The two Jedi continued to expertly play off of one another in order to just stay alive, avoiding Bane's Titan-like power. The Sith Lord threw a force push that would have plastered Master Lusu on the wall like paint, but Farfalla managed to cast a force shield in order to protect the Jedi. Realizing this, Bane turned and released a barrage of force lightning towards Farfalla, having sensed his intervention. The lightning shredded through his force shield, but the Jedi Lusu was there to save him, she being the best duelist of the group, weaving her twin lightsabers in figure 8 patterns to fend off the lightning. This is how the Jedi veterans fought together, covering each other's weaknesses and enhancing their strengths. Unfortunately though, the other Jedi team was not so adept at this concept. Johan and Sorrow attacked Darth Zana, who used Form 3 Sarisu. Zana put herself in a corner in order to protect her flanks and keep both Jedi in front of her, twirling her lightsaber into an impassable wall of defense. Sorrow was the far more experienced duelist of the two Jedi, able to unleash half a dozen strikes in a single moment that it took Johan to throw 2. But the problem came in when the two Jedi kept getting in each other's way. Johan used Form 6 9-Man, as he didn't fight very often at all, and as such, his strikes and movements were painfully basic and predictable. He had little to no battlefield awareness whatsoever, and was attempting to alternate his attacks with those of Sorrow, expecting that they could take turns pressing an assault and then withdrawing. But the incredible reach of Sorrow's weapon made it difficult for him to unleash a sustained volley without fear of injuring or even killing his companion, especially when he moved into the fray to attack Zana. As a result, the bigger man constantly had to step back, pull up, or lay off his brutal strikes against Zana. The Jedi was forced into an awkward rhythm of advance and retreat. His timing and strategy dictated as much by his ally as his opponent, and because of this, Zana was content to play a more passive role in the duel, staying completely on the defense. As long as Zana kept the momentum of her saber moving, the two Jedi would continue to accidentally sabotage each other, keeping her pretty much safe from Sorrow's expert battle prowess. But now back to Lord Bane. The Echani Jedi Master was contending with Bane extremely well. She was quick and elegant, at first attempting to rapidly slash at Bane's legs, but still halted by the Orbalisk armor. Bane faked her out by making a downward slash, but then knocked her out of the way with his elbow. The Jedi Farfalla ended up getting disarmed due to the strange nature of Bane's curve-tilted lightsaber, and he fell back to provide support for his Echani companion with the Force, protecting her from any more of Bane's dark attacks. Master Lusu then began to rapidly attack one spot on Bane's body that was not covered in armor. That was his head. She began to leap, dance, and move around him extremely quickly. Everywhere at once, Lusu slashed, thrusted, and hacked towards Bane's head. The entire time he was just barely ducking and bobbing out of the way with her massive assault, trying to mount a counter-offensive. But that's when he suddenly turned and broke off from the duel, charging straight for Master Waror, taking out their battle meditation support. While the Jedi were indeed powerful and skilled, they were mostly alive due to this, and moving as quickly as they were due to battle meditation empowerment. This is something that Bane knew. Realizing what was happening, Farfalla released all of his stored power that he had been saving up, attempting to trap Bane in a force barrier and freeze him in place. But it only held Bane for half a moment. Bane shattered straight through it. He was an unstoppable tank, like trying to fight a force of nature. Master Waror, in deep battle meditation, could not move from his position since the meditation required all of his focus, and he was effectively helpless until Master Lusu jumped in front of Bane in order to protect the Ithorian. At this point, Farfalla came up for help from Sorrow and Johan. Sorrow took the opportunity to rid himself of the hindrance Johan, ordering him to break off of Zana and to help the other Jedi. At this point, Sorrow grinned down at Zana, as he was now able to fight her at his full power. This proved to be a massive problem for the young Sith apprentice. The young Jedi Johan joined the masters of all three of them as they engaged Bane at once, protecting the Ithorian Jedi. And while Johan's clumsy efforts had actually seemed to impede Sorrow when they dueled side by side, the female Blade Master before Bane appeared to thrive off of the young Jedi's presence, unlike her apprentice. When he went in high, the Jedi Master went low. If he came from the left, she would go to the right. it was partially a function of her choice of weapon. Individually, each of the Jedi's lightsabers were more precise and accurate than that of Sorrow's giant double blades. But it was more than that. Her reactions were so fast, her combat instincts so pure, that she was able to sense and anticipate what he was going to do as it happened, then using his attacks to her advantage. On her opposite side, Farfalla was striking clean, elegant blows against Bane, his form perfect as he attacked Bane's flank. Yet, though they were able to hold their ground, they could not drive Bane back, let alone defeat him. It required the combined might of 3 Jedi, 2 of them being the most experienced fighters in this era, along with the help of Jedi battle meditation, to so much as stalemate the mighty Darth Bane. Despite 3 of them attacking his head at one time, Bane's defenses were so quick, and his attacks so powerful, they could not land a single blow. The young Jedi Johan, however, noticed a small gap between Bane's armor and his glove at the wrist, and used his enhanced focus to go for this small opening. The strike wasn't perfect, and the armor protected Bane's hand from being severely damaged, or even severed entirely. But what the blade did do is cause a shallow slash on the Dark Lord's arm, forcing him to momentarily drop his lightsaber. But this was only a tiny victory. The sudden pain shot power through Bane as he drew upon the pain to unleash a force repulse, dropping all 3 Jedi to the floor. Instantly, his wound healed, and he got his lightsaber to strike down the now prone Ithorian. Johan managed to force push the Master out of the way as the enraged Bane cleaved towards the ground. This saved the Jedi Master's life, but it also cost them the benefits of battle meditation, as the Jedi had lost focus from being flung across the room. But back to Zana, the young Jedi had desperately been fighting off the power of an experienced combatant such as Sorrow, who backed her into a corner and was about to utterly annihilate her. His blows were too strong, his fighting style was too perfect, and both her defense and agility were stripped away. But once the battle meditation was snuffed out, Sorrow hesitated to catch a glance as what happened to his allies. At this single moment of distraction, Zana quickly weaved a Sith spell onto the Jedi, causing his deepest nightmares to come to life before his very eyes. This was Zana's true power. While Sorrow was distracted and wildly swinging at monsters that were not there, Zana ended his life quickly with one quick gash across his chest. And then, the Sith apprentice joined her master. From this point in the duel, it was over. The 3 Jedi re-engaged Bane, and Zana used the same concealment spell on herself that she did at the Jedi Temple, sneaking up behind the Jedi group and focusing on the Master, the greatest duelist of the strike team. She thrust her blade through the chest of Master Lesu first, taking on the strongest warrior, and after this, Bane took full advantage of Farfalla and Johan's surprise, slicing off Johan's weapon hand. He then smacked Farfalla's lightsaber aside with his obelisk-encrusted forearm, and followed through with his lightsaber, relieving Master Farfalla of his head. Finally, Bane turned to Master Waror, the Jedi who had enacted battle meditation, slashing through all 4 of his throats with one blow. The battle was now over. The still-living, single-handed Johan was crawling across the floor, and Bane turned to finish him off, a cruel barrage of force lightning, prepared to fry the Jedi on the spot. But the Jedi Master Waror, with his throat slit in a final dying act, grabbed Bane by the ankle and cast a shimmering force barrier all around him. The Sith lightning that would have hit the young Jedi now ricocheted around the force barrier that trapped Bane, reflecting back upon its master. As he previously learned, the one weakness to the Orbalisk armor is electricity, as it will kill them nearly instantly. In this moment, the force lightning from Bane ended up frying every single one of the Orbalisks on his body, causing them to immediately die and begin flooding his body with toxin. Bane, severely injured by the burns of his own lightning and the Orbalisk toxin, Bane began to crash to the floor. Zana had been stunned by this entire event happening so quickly, but once it was over, she quickly killed the young Jedi and rushed to her master for help, even forcing her still-alive cousin to attempt to revive Bane. But they could not help the Dark Lord. His injuries were far beyond his own healing, but Zana knew of one other healer that had helped Bane many years ago, a man by the name of Caleb who lived on Ambria. Traveling to the world, Zana located Caleb hiding in his shack, as Caleb had sensed the Sith were coming. Caleb at first refused to aid Bane at all, as he had been forced to the first time when Bane threatened his daughter. The healer was immune to torture because pain meant nothing to him now, but by this point, he had sent his daughter away as he knew that one day the Dark Lord may return. Zana could not get Caleb to heal Bane no matter what she tried. But her cousin, who still believed Zana had the capacity to turn her life around and return to the light side, convinced Caleb to save Bane, saying that if he did, that Zana could be brought back. Caleb agreed, but on only a single condition. Zana had to disable the ship that they came in and send out a messenger drone to the Jedi Order, telling them that the Sith were on the world. Although Zana tried to get out of it, she would eventually agree, as there was no other option to save Bane's life. But luckily, Zana had a trick up her sleeve. She was indeed Sith. After Caleb successfully healed Bane, the Sith Lord was still going to be incapacitated for weeks or maybe even months. There was no chance that the two of them could fight the incoming Jedi invasion. And so Zana ended up murdering Caleb and using her Sith sorcery to drive her cousin insane. Zana then gave him one of the lightsabers from the dead Jedi, and once another Jedi strike team arrived on the world in response to the messenger droid, Zana's cousin was hidden within the shack like a madman, swinging the Jedi lightsaber wildly. The Jedi immediately took him out and believed that he was pathetic, but the Jedi believed that he was the Sith, that he had been Bane, and that he had gone absolutely insane. Meanwhile, Zana and the true Bane were hiding underneath the floorboards, narrowly escaping the Jedi. The Sith were able to get off scot-free, with the Jedi believing that the final Sith had died at their own hand and that the Sith Order was now extinct. And this, my friends, was the final interaction the Jedi had with the rule of two Sith for several hundred years. This confrontation was definitely exciting, and it had many layers. And while it's always awesome to see the legendary Darth Bane in combat, it's very interesting to see the Jedi strike team actually operate at peak efficiency. They were leagues more competent than the Jedi that we see in the Acolyte, and they even managed to leave Bane on the brink of death. But all in all, Darth Bane was not responsible for the Jedi finding him, as he did not purposefully expose himself, and it was his apprentice Zana who used very creative thinking to fake the extinction of the Sith and preserved the rule of two. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of our story? Do you like when we go into the deep battle breakdowns from Legends continuity? And if you made it to the end of the holocron, we appreciate it a great deal. But anyway, my friends, thank you as always so much for watching and supporting the channel and the archives, and may the Force be with you always.